It's Hugh Hewitt. Fridays when we are lucky, Sarah Westwood joins us. Sarah C. Westwood on Twitter with the DC Examiner. Good morning, Sarah. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Three big stories out of Congress this week. I've already covered the Gallagher Committee extensively. I want to talk about the hearing that Merrick Garland had where he got just ripped apart by Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz. And then your story this morning about the classified documents. And let's start there. Would you set up the story for our audience? They go read it at DC Examiner. I just tweeted out the link, but tell people about it.
So the Senate Intelligence Committee has been working since the fall to get access to the underlying classified documents that were found in Donald Trump's home. They're not interested in the law enforcement case about how each man, Trump and now Biden, who's been sort of added to their inquiry, handled these documents. They're not interested in the criminal liability, but they want to see how the intelligence community has mitigated any potential risk from those classified documents possibly being exposed to other people. Now they also want to see the underlying classified documents in the Biden case as well. And the intelligence community has been saying, our hands are tied because the Justice Department has these open criminal investigations. So there's been a lot of back and forth between Senate Intel and the intelligence community and DOJ. They received their second briefing this week and still didn't get answers from the Biden administration. So there's a lot of frustration there.
I understand that the Department of Justice does not want to compromise the prosecution. They will not. The last people to be surprised by what's in the documents will be Trump and Biden and Trump and Biden's lawyers. They know what's in the documents, right? So the senators are being pushed out because I think Team Biden doesn't want leaks. What's your theory of why they're not turning these documents over to the Senate Intel Committee, which is charged by the Constitution with doing oversight of the second branch? The first branch gets to oversee the second branch.
There's a number of theories. I mean, if you see an anti-Trump conspiracy behind every government move, you might wonder that they don't want to share the underlying classified documents because they're actually not that bad. It might, in a way, sort of exonerate Trump. And it's better to sort of hold over his head this idea that something very, very nefarious was going on. On the flip side, maybe some of the material that Biden has was extra sensitive, and that could sort of implicate him in something more serious than what the public knows right now. We really have no idea why the Biden administration is doing this, but it's important to note that during the Mueller investigation, which was also an ongoing criminal probe that involved a special counsel, like these cases, Senate Intel did get access to classified information. This sort of argument that they can't disturb a criminal probe wasn't used in that situation. It also wasn't used during the Hillary Clinton investigation, which also involved the improper handling of classified information. Lawmakers got to see those sensitive documents at the time they were the subject of a criminal investigation. So this argument from the Biden administration doesn't hold up to even recent precedent. And that's part of why the Senate Intelligence Committee is starting to think about ways, they can start to flex some muscle and get these documents.
They will never subpoena any. I mean, it's run by a Democrat, Mark Warner, who's very smart and very competent, but they're never going to issue a subpoena from the Democrats. The House Weaponization Subcommittee might to get these documents, and then they'll have a 2-year fight. The whole plan is delay and deny. But I also want to know, in the Merrick Garland hearing, which was so withering for the AG, I didn't watch all of it. Did anyone ask him about this issue and why he needed a separate special counsel? Because in my opinion, they should have sent the Biden documents to Jack Smith so that one lawyer was making one judgment based on one standard of document. Instead, they set up a second special. Did anyone ask him that?
I didn't catch the whole thing either. I thought some of the most noteworthy exchanges had to do with the sort of pro-life issue that the Department of Justice has had a totally disproportionate response to the, pro-abortion activists versus the anti-abortion activists. That's where I think Garland sort of took the most heat and didn't have a lot of satisfactory answers to those questions. DOJ hasn't had those for months now that this has been an issue.
Sarah Westwood, I want to close by focusing on Merrick Garland. He looked pretty old. I mean, he looked like Mueller did when Mueller testified. He looks like President Biden at a press conference. Do you think he's up to doing this for another 2 years? Because he just did not seem to have the energy for being the attorney general.
He's starting to take a lot more flack from places that aren't just, the House Freedom Caucus. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are dissatisfied with the way that he's handled this, whether you're on the left and you don't think that he's gone aggressively enough against your enemies, because he has been, in some ways, less political than, say, an Eric Holder had been during the Obama administration. But then if you're on the right, you see this sort of what looks like uneven targeting of conservatives by the Justice Department that has increased on his watch. So I think that these really let down both sides, and it would be hard to imagine him, let's say Biden does win a second term by some miracle for him. It's hard to see Merrick Garland hanging on for a second.
Yeah, I think an infirm attorney general, and that's what the president is not someone in a position to robustly lead that agency, which of course is enormous and matters the most to Americans at home, DOD abroad, and state. Sarah C. Westwood on Twitter. That's where you'll find her. Sarah C. Westwood on Twitter from the DC Examiner. Thank you, Sarah. Always good to see you on a Friday.